Hey everybody, Chef Chad Armstrong here, founder of Home Cook Academy, and welcome to this video lesson on how to cook brown rice pilaf. Oh no, not brown rice. You know, we've gotten away from rice to the fact that we have polished it down to where it's just white rice. See, the problem with white rice is there's no nutrients left in it. So we've taken everything off of that rice and left nothing behind that is going to provide nutritional value. Sure, there's some things still in there that are good for you, but we've taken a lot of that away. So with brown rice is just had the husk removed from the kernel, and it's still got the bran intact. And that's where you're getting your fiber, you're getting a lot of nutrients. That's the kind of stuff that you want to be eating and putting into your body. So the problem though, people don't know how to prepare brown rice properly. Brown rice can be tough, it can be nutty, it can be really big flavors, which people don't generally associate with rice. They like the white rice where they're adding things to it, they're having it with something, and it's really just a very neutral flavor. You can add soy sauce or butter or herbs to, and it really just takes on those flavors. Brown rice can have its own flavor. But today I'm going to take you through and show you how to properly make brown rice, and we're going to do, like I said, brown rice pilaf. And pilaf is really just it's got some aromatics and some things added to it to help flavor pilaf. So instead of when you make rice, liquid, you have rice, you just put it all together, cover it, and let it cook. Pilaf has a couple extra steps added to add flavor to our rice. So let's go ahead. I'm going to walk you through the steps. I've got my pan over here, and this is a 3-quart saucepan that I'm going to do. And with that, I've got 1 cup of brown rice. So this is long grain brown rice, and you can see, it's got some things going on. There's some different colors in there. It's really the way rice should be. It shouldn't be all the same white color. It should have different colors going on, especially like you can see some of the greens where some of the rices didn't get dried out all the way. There's still some of that color to it, which is good. That's what I want to see in my rice. So for 1 cup of brown rice, I'm going to need more liquid than you traditionally do with white rice. So I've got 2.5 cups of chicken stock, and it's just the chicken stock that I made. This is a dark chicken stock from roasted chicken bones and carcasses that I use to flavor. So I want the big flavors coming out to go with the big flavors of my rice. So instead of using water, which you could totally use water, it's fine. I like adding chicken stock because it adds just that much more flavor and goes with my brown rice that much nicer. So I've also got a little more than 1/4 cup, maybe 1/3 of a cup of small diced onion that I'm gonna just sweat in some butter. So I'm using butter. This is 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter. So I like grass-fed butter because, once again, I want to get the nutritional value out of the food as much as possible. So instead of using conventional butter where the cows are fed grain, which is, grain is not normally what cows eat in their diet. They can't digest it properly, it just turns into fat. It also turns into things that they don't necessarily need in their bodies, which they're going to now pass on to us with things that we're eating. So when they're eating grass, they're getting all those omega-3s and omega-6s that are going to pass on to us. That's stored in there, and that's going to be now in the butter. So using butter is not a bad thing. Just make sure you use the right butter. You could also use olive oil if you didn't want to use butter. If you couldn't find grass-fed butter, use an olive oil to do that as well. And then I've also got a bay leaf. The bay leaf is going to help just add a little more flavor to my rice as it's cooking. It's just one of those things that you can do. You can use other herbs, but I like the flavor that bay brings to my rice when I'm cooking it. So first step we're going to do is get our pot turned on. I'm going to put it just over a medium, kind of lower medium heat. I don't want this to get really, really hot because it'll burn my butter, and it'll want to scorch and color my onions. I don't want to color my onions when I do this. Sweating is really just a process of bringing some of the moisture out of your food. So when you say, I'm going to sweat some onions, all I'm going to do is cook them over a lower temperature heat and really just to start bringing the water out to help them cook and soften a little bit. And it's going to be about 4 or 5 minutes to cook the onions where we're just getting them to where they're just translucent. And translucent is just where you can kind of start to see it becomes opaque around the edges and almost so you can see through the onion itself. So let's go ahead and add our butter, get that in there. Let that start to melt. And like I said, with the heat on this, it shouldn't be too high, because if I get my butter really hot, it will burn as well. You know, with fats, you know, they all have different smoke points. And what the smoke point means is the point at which your butter or your fat is going to start to smoke and then in turn burn. So we don't want that. We don't want it to burn. And butter, especially whole butter, has a lot lower smoke point than most other fats. You know, there's still a lot of things in there that can burn and things that you don't want to add to your foods. So you can see it's melting fairly quickly. So I'm going to go ahead, turn my heat down just a little bit more. Get that. Once that's melted, then we'll go ahead and add our rice. Our onion. So I am going to turn on my chicken stock as well. I want my chicken stock to be hot too. So with this step, when I sweat my onions, I'm then going to add my rice, and I'm going to cook my rice for a couple minutes in the fat as well. I want my stock to be hot. I don't want to pour cold stock into a hot pan with hot items, and it's going to totally slow down the cooking process. So I want everything to keep going step by step by step to where it's all, you know, hot all the way through. All right, so let's go ahead and add our onion. And so you can just barely hear a little bit of sizzle with the onion. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more now, to where I just have a not a low flame, but a medium low flame underneath this. So we're going to let that just sit for a second. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, and the salt will help bring out some of that moisture in our onions. Now, the thing about salt though is I don't want to add a lot of salt early on in cooking rice or anything that's going to absorb all the liquid during the cooking process. So this 1 cup of rice is going to absorb the entire amount of chicken stock, so the entire 2.5 cups of chicken stock. So whatever I put into that, you know, like salt and pepper, it's going to pull all that into the rice as well. So if I add a lot of salt early on, too much salt early on, the rice is going to absorb it, and then your food's going to be too salty. So with cooking anything where it's absorbing all the liquids, go minimal on your salt in the beginning, and then you can add more later on once it's absorbed already. Now, if you're doing like pasta or you're blanching vegetables, things like our potatoes, where it's not going to absorb the liquid, add a lot of salt. You want to get a lot of flavor into that liquid to help, you know, flavor the food that you're cooking it in. So just a little extra tip there for you with cooking anything, you know, in liquid or anything that's going to absorb liquid. So just go a little minimal on your salt. So this is just going to sweat just for a couple minutes. You can see I've just got a little bit of movement happening there. It's not a ton. And I just want it to just barely start, it's just making a little bit of noise. So it's not being, you know, really loud. It's not sauteing. So it's just barely kind of got some movement happening, which is what I want to see. Okay, so let's come back. I'll bring it back in just a minute. We'll go through, I'll show you what to look for in a translucent onion, and then we'll add our rice. So now it's been, you know, about 5 minutes, and you can see the onions, and I'll just hold it up there so you can see a little bit better, are starting to become translucent, and where you can start to just see kind of through the onions, almost like you can, you know, look through them entirely. So now that we're at that point, I'm actually going to add my rice to this, and I'm going to cook this for about a minute to, you know, maybe 1 or 2 minutes in the fat. And what I want is I want some of that fat to start to absorb and coat that rice. And you can see, like, almost instantaneously, all the fat is like sucked up into the rice. And that's good, because that's going to hit flavor in my rice pilaf. That's what I want. Those are things that you just help to do to build and make a more flavorful brown rice pilaf. So let's just to heat. I'm going to come back up a little bit with the heat now, because I just added, you know, a room temperature product to, you know, a hot pan. You know, it slows down the cooking process, so you want to get that back up, and you'll just start to hear a little bit of popping going on. I'm just going to, you know, every like 15-20 seconds or so, just stir this for about a minute. And you'll even start to see the rice do the same thing as the onion did, where it becomes translucent, and you could just start to see a little bit through the outside edge of the bran of the rice. Now, I don't want to burn this. I don't want to add any color to this at all. Just letting that liquid just start to absorb or the fat start to absorb into the rice a little bit. It's coating it, it's giving it a little bit more flavor. My chicken stock is now at a slight simmer over here behind the stove as well, on the back of the stove. So that's ready to go. I can add, a pinch more of salt. Like I said, I don't want to add too much right now. I can add a little bit of pepper right now. I can go ahead and drop the bay leaf in because I'm going to cook that with the rice. Let's give it one last stir. And then now I'm going to go ahead and add my stock. Turn that off. Just go ahead and add it all at once. You can see right away it all comes up to a simmer. Now I don't want to necessarily boil this. Give it one last stir. I'm going to put a lid on this because I want this to steam. So the steam is going to be trapped inside. So make sure you have a tight fitting lid for your pan. And now I'm going to turn that down to low, and I'm going to go as low as I can with this on my stove. So that's down to a simmer. Put the lid on so you can see it's just it's coming down now. So I've turned it down all the way. I'm going to put the lid on, and I want the steam to stay trapped inside there. And what I want is all that liquid to absorb now into the rice. I might come back and stir it maybe once just to check on it, but it really just needs to sit here covered, low simmer all the way through. And it does take a little bit longer. It takes probably, an extra 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes longer than white rice does to absorb all that liquid, because that bran is really tough and it really has to start, breaking down and absorbing everything. So I'm going to let this simmer now. I'm going to let it go. We're going to come back when this is done, and I'll show you what it looks like and how to properly, fluff it as well. So stay tuned. We'll come right back and we'll finish this dish off. So about 40 minutes later, here we are again. I turned the oven off after it cooked for that period of time. And I let it sit for about 5 minutes. I didn't take the lid off because I wanted the rice to finish absorbing the rest of the liquid, the rest of the stock that's in there, whatever it might be, and it's still creating a lot of steam. So the lid is extremely hot. Make sure you do use something to protect yourself with. But go ahead and take the lid off, and you can see it pushed the bay leaf up to the top. The onions are all around the sides of the edges. It just has that whatever came up to the top with, as the liquid absorbed into the rice and the rice fluffed up. And you can see it's quite a bit more in volume as well. So all you do is just take your fork, and you've probably heard this, the fluffy rice. All you do is just take and drag your fork through the outside to the inside, working up into the center, just bringing it up. You're just lifting up the rice just to separate those grains. The smell is amazing as well. Let's taste it for salt because we want to make sure that we do season it. So I'm going to add a little more salt to this as well. Maybe just a little more pepper too. Give it another stir. Let's use our fork instead. And there you have it. Really just that simple on how to make, brown rice pilaf. If you want to serve this immediately, it's ready to go. But if you also, are planning ahead, why not make a double batch of brown rice? It takes a little bit longer to cook than white rice. Why not make a double batch? Use what you need for that night and then save the rest for another application later in the week. Maybe a brown rice pilaf salad. Maybe you want to add some, tomatoes and some mozzarella cheese to it, or some greens, and make a salad to it. Maybe add a little vinegar and oil, to help, like a vinaigrette. And if you want to save it, you do want to get it out of the pan and let it cool. So I'm going to take and show you. All you do is just take and pour it out onto a sheet tray. And then spread it out and let that cool, because the rice is still going. It will overcook if you leave it in the pan. It'll become really like a big, just glob of rice, like a brick of rice, where it's all stuck together. So now this way, by spreading it out on a sheet tray, I can let the rice, cool, let the steam subside. Then I can take and either put it in the fridge or put it to another container once it's cold and keep it for 3 or 4 or 5 days and use it later in the week. So you have something else that you can do with it. Like I said, turn it into a salad. It's fantastic, in that application. So let's get away from eating white rice, from processed foods, from the foods that are really not doing our bodies any good. Let's get to eating real whole foods, whole grains in their truest form that we can get the most nutrients out of. So I hope this video helped. I hope that you got something out of just cooking brown rice and doing something different with it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those below. I'll get back to you and answer those. I can't wait to see you in the next videos. This is, just a one step in many. If you want further information, check out our YouTube channel, subscribe to that, or come to our website, chefchadarmstrong.com, for more videos, more information. I've got some recipes on there as well. I do also have the recipe for this included in the video, or down below the video, so go ahead and check that out. That's yours for good. So I hope to see you in the next video lesson. Remember, one thing I like to say every time is get out there and cook, because life is worth cooking. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't it make sense to take a little time and cook for ourselves? All right, I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day and take care.